Welcome back to Winning Law. I'm attorney David Nguyen with offices in Houston, Texas. So today we're going to talk about the I-864 Affidavit of Support. Now this form is usually required for people that are seeking their initial green card application. So if you're filing the I-485 application to adjust status, most likely you're required to submit an I-864 Affidavit of Support. When I was reading a blog online, I noticed that one of the individuals asked their attorney this question about how to fill out the form, and the attorney indicated that it's very complicated and he has to check with his staff in order to respond to that question. And honestly, I don't really know why it's confusing. It's actually pretty easy to fill out, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to fill it out. So the first thing before you start, I do recommend that you make sure that your income is sufficient to be a sponsor. So if you're a sponsor and you're filling out this form for a foreign national, you want to visit a website. This is the website here, USCIS.gov/I-864P. Now what this is the Health and Human Services Poverty Guidelines. Now this document here is updated every March every year. So every year is likely going to increase. So the amount that you have to make this year is going to be less than what you have to make next year. So when you're on this website, and again, you can just go to Google, type in I-864 and the letter P as in Paul. Once you go on this website, you're going to click on here. Unless you live in Alaska or Hawaii, then you click on one of these. And when you're reading this chart, this is how you read it. This first column is your household size. So how is your household size calculated? So if you are married, it's 2 people, right? If you are married and you have minor children, then it may be 3 or 4. If you are married, and so there's 2 people already, and then you have let's say you claim your parents on your taxes. So you have to add your parents on your taxes, so you'll have a family size of 3. Whatever your household size is, then you would add in the foreign national. So if it's going to be, if you are single, so it'll just be a household size of 1, and you add in the foreign national, that makes 2. That's why you'll always see this chart start out with the number 2, because you have to count in the foreign national. You don't have to count in the foreign national's family. So if that foreign national is married or they have children, you don't have to count them into the I-864. You just have to indicate your household size plus that foreign national. Next, the next column is for people that are actively in the military. You'll notice that the amounts are a lot less than the amounts over here, and this is for active military personnel. So if your sponsor or your joint sponsor is actively in the military, they only have to earn this amount versus this amount. Now for everyone else, you want to use this column here. So you'll notice that if you have a household size of 2, your adjusted gross income or your net income for the most recent calendar year has to be at least this amount. So the government is focused on the most recent calendar year. So let's say, for example, you made this amount last year, but you didn't make it the years before. It's okay, because they're only focused on the most recent calendar year. So these are the amounts that you'll need, so just go ahead and read through them. So again, if you have a household size of over 8, you have to just add $5,900 to these figures here, this last figure here, for each additional family member. So remember, this number will change every single year. So if March approaches, you'll know to check this website to determine what the new poverty guideline numbers are. Once you have this number, just write it down because you'll need it later. Now once you're filling out the Affidavit of Support, all you would have to do is go to the government's main website. Their website is USCIS.gov. Once you're on this website, you'll notice that there are some headers here. Go ahead and click on the word Forms. Once you click on Forms, you're going to go under Topics and click on All Forms. Once you're on here, you could scroll down all the way and it's in alphabetical order, or you could just type in I-864. Okay, and once you do that, go ahead and click Search, and you can fill out the forms. And you'll notice that there are several different ones. I'm just going to go over this one as of today. Just note that this I-864 Easy is available under certain situations, but it's not, I don't recommend it only because sometimes the person at the National Visa Center doesn't know how to read this and they require this one. So I always recommend using this one if you can. Once you click on this document, you'll notice several things. One, it tells you the edition date. This is very, very important because if you are searching for the I-864 form or your attorney gives you a form, it may be outdated. So you always want to open this form here. So again, I'm right clicking so I can open this to show you. Once you click on this form, and I'm just going to maximize this, that way you can see it. At the bottom of this form, you'll see the edition date, and notice how this says that this edition is December 8, 2021, and when you look on here, it tells you that the edition is the December 8, 2021 version. And so make sure that if you are using this form, you just make sure that the version is up to date, because if you're using an outdated form, the application may be rejected, or they may issue a request for evidence to ask for the new edition. When you click on this document, you'll notice that it also has instructions. So if you have questions after watching this video, I definitely recommend that you go in and you read the instructions on this affidavit of support, because it tells you exactly what to do step by step, line by line. So I think this is a very good tool in order to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. It is pretty long at 17 pages, but I do recommend that you read over it because it goes over the financial sponsor's responsibilities and what type of documents that have to be submitted. So let's go back to this page here. In addition, you'll notice that the filing fee, it should be $0. It shouldn't cost you anything to submit this document. And there is a checklist here. They tell you what to submit, some of the documents that you can provide, but look at this disclaimer. It tells you that this is for informational purposes only. So this means that if you use this checklist, it's not a guarantee that you're not going to be missing any required documents. So the government you can have this, submit the documents that you see on here, and the government can go in and ask you to submit additional documents or to tell you that you submitted the wrong documents. So notice that it says for informational purposes only. So basically that's saying at your own risk. So given that every case is different, I'm not going to be able to go in and tell you exactly what documents to submit for your I-864. We're only going to cover how to fill out the form itself. So again, be very careful in using this checklist. It's a good starting point, but you have to read this checklist. You have to look at the instructions that are available on the government's website, and you have to read the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is the immigration code, to determine exactly what documents are required. So now let's just look at this document here. There are some information that you have to read. Actually, let's just look at the questionnaire. So usually if you're using an attorney, the attorney will click on this box and they'll enter their state bar number, and then they'll enter in their accredited USCIS number. Now, I always tell people, be very careful if you're using an attorney, because if they don't have this account number, personally, I wouldn't use them, only because I would be afraid that they don't have a lot of experience with immigration. Because if you deal with a lot of immigration cases, you should have this account access number to access your cases online. Now in part 1 is asking for the name. Now this is the name of the person that's filling out this affidavit of support. So this is not the foreign national. This person should be a US citizen or green card holder, financial sponsor. So remember, usually the person filling out this form is the petitioner, the person filling out the I-130 petition. But sometimes if there's a joint sponsor involved, it could be the joint sponsor as well. And just remember, if you have or filling out this form, you have to be a US citizen or a green card holder. So you enter in that person's name here, and then you would select one of these options here. Most of the time, you will be clicking on I am the petitioner and I'm filing or have filed an immigrant petition. So you're filing this as a spouse or a parent of a child or a child filing for your parent, even a sibling. Most likely this is going to be what you have to select. The next most common selection is joint sponsor. So if the petitioner does not make enough income, most likely you'll need a joint sponsor, so this is the appropriate box for that. The next thing is asking for information about the principal immigrant. This is the foreign national, so it's not the same person that the name goes up here. So down here you'll put down the principal immigrant's name. First, notice that it's stating their last name. So when you're filling this out, make sure that you input the foreign national's last name first, then their first name, then their middle name. Notice that it says name, meaning full name. So try not to use abbreviations because they want the full name. Next, you're going to see the mailing address. And again, look how these are numbered. 1F and then 1A, part 2. So this address is for the foreign national, not for the person here, the sponsor. So fill this out for the foreign national. Make sure that you use the drop-down box to fill in the state if applicable. If it doesn't apply, let's say for example, you are from Vietnam and there's no states. So what you could do is you could just put the city, like Ho Chi Minh City, and then you could skip this, you could skip this, you could skip this, and then enter in your postal code and put in Vietnam. So again, this may not apply to your particular country. Some countries don't even have street numbers, they just have street addresses or city and states because they're so small. So just remember that this is a default form. You want to fill it in as much as possible. When you have questions about this form, go back to the instructions. Next is asking for the foreign national's country of citizenship or nationality. Make sure to put down at least one where that person was born, but you can also indicate if they have dual citizenship. You could put down multiple countries. Next, the person's date of birth. Remember, it's month first, then day, then year. Aside from the United States, most countries will list the dates as day first, and then the month next, and then the year after that. So just note that the US is the only country that puts it in this particular format of month, day, and year. So make sure that when you're looking at your foreign nationals documents that you enter in the correct date of birth. Sometimes it's helpful to have them spell it out, the month and the day. That way you're not confused on what they're using as a day and the month. The alien registration number is a number that's given to people that, usually it applies to people that apply for work authorization in the US, or they've been in immigration proceedings, or they've been in school in the US. So they may or may not have an alien number. Alien numbers are usually 8 to 9 digits long. If your alien number only has 8 digits, you might want to add a 0 at the beginning before entering it in here. If it's 9 digits, then you can enter it in here. So if you filed prior petitions or applications with immigration, usually the alien number is written down somewhere, like especially on the receipt notices. It'll be an 8 or 9 digit number, and it'll have the letter A before it on your receipt notices or decisions. Next is USCIS account number. Again, this is all for the foreign nationals, so most likely they won't have any, so you can just skip this. Next is a date-time phone number. I recommend only entering in phone numbers and not any special characters, like, you don't want to do any of these parentheses or anything. You want to just enter in the number. Next is asking who are you sponsoring. You want to go ahead and click on, most likely the choice is this if you're sponsoring just one person. If you're sponsoring more than one person, let's say you're filing for your spouse and that spouse has other children, you may have to click on yes here and then click on this right here or this option here, depending on if they have children or other dependents that are coming with you. Now, if there are other immigrants that you're filing for, so let's say, for example, you're filing this for a spouse and you enter in your spouse's name here, if they have dependent family members, you may want to enter them here under family members. You see there's a lot of spaces for family members. Here is asking the total number of immigrants that you're sponsoring. So if you're sponsoring individuals, make sure you read the instructions carefully. Most likely, if you're just sponsoring one, you could put the number 1 here. Next, it's going to ask you in part 4 for your information. So either if you're the petitioner filing for this, or you're the co-sponsor or joint sponsor, this is going to be your information. So again, put your last name first, then your first name, then your middle name. Make sure that it matches your IDs. If your IDs do not match and you have one name listed differently somewhere else, that may pose an issue. So you may need to speak with an immigration attorney if you're unable to read over these instructions and reading over the Immigration Nationality Act to determine what you should do. So again, this is for the sponsor's information. Your name, your address, make sure you fill out everything correctly. If you have an apartment number or a suite number or a floor number, make sure you click on the applicable boxes because it needs to match the government's database. Next is asking, is your current mailing address the same as your physical address? So most likely it is. Like where you're getting your mail is also where you live, so you can go ahead and click on yes. If you click on yes, you can skip this part where it says physical address. If you click on no, you have to fill in what the mailing address or what your physical address is. Next, and other information is asking for your country of domicile. Hopefully you're living in the US because they don't like it when the sponsors don't live in the US. So hopefully you live in the US. You can put down the country of domicile where you're living now. Should be US. And then it asks for your date of birth. Make sure to put your 2-digit month first before you put down your 2-digit day. Also put it in this format. Next, you're going to put in the city or town of birth, state of birth, and country of birth. Again, if you were born in a different country and there's no states there or no provinces, you could just leave it blank here. Next, you want to enter in your social security number. Again, it says here required. I always recommend that you check your social security card or you check your tax returns to see what your social security number is. Do not guess that social security number. It's very important. If you're unable to find it, by default, what you could do is you could visit your local IRS office or the Internal Revenue Service office and ask them to help you locate that number. Next, you're going to type in whether or not, or select if you're a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or a lawful permanent resident. Remember, lawful permanent resident is another name for green card holder, so just select what you are. If you were not born in the U.S. or you're a green card holder, most likely you have this alien number. Next, a USCIS account number. If you don't remember what it is, or if you have one, you could just leave this blank. Most people do leave this blank even if they have an account number, just to save time. Next, it's going to ask you if you're currently on active duty in the armed forces. Remember this question, why it's important. This question, if you answer yes, you can use the poverty guidelines in the middle here. And if it's no, then you have to use the one on the far right. So that's why they're asking that particular question. Next, when you get down here to part 5, sponsor's household size, you're going to enter in the number in 29. So 29 should be how many people you're sponsoring. So let's go ahead and look at that question over again. Where is that question here? It says 1 already. So it should go ahead and click 1. Once you download this form, it should automatically put 1 here. And then it asks you to put down, if you're married, you put down 1 here. If you have dependent children, you put down their numbers here and all of these other things. So just remember here, it says persons not sponsored in this affidavit. So if you're filing this as a spouse of the person that you're filling this out for, you could put 1 here and you could put 0 here because a 1 should automatically appear here, because this is the person that you're sponsoring. You don't have to count them more than 1 time. So here you could put a 0, you could also put an NA, which also works. And then after you do all of that, down here this household size would automatically change to 2. So the government has it built into this form. The next thing is that you want to go ahead and click on one of these under sponsors, employment, and income. You can click on here, employed as, so you want to put your job title. Try to be more specific. So you don't want to just put down education. You could put down teacher or elementary teacher. I recommend something very specific. After you enter that in, the name of your employer. Always make sure that you're spelling your employer's name correctly. So take a look at your pay statements. I have so many situations where a person has misspelled their employer's name and it becomes an issue. So if you have more than 2 employers, you can enter in that information here. If you're self-employed, you could put it here. Don't just put self-employed and leave this empty. You're going to put in what you do. So you could put down electrician, you could put down attorney, you could put down business owner, whatever it is. Next, if you're retired, you can also put down your date of retirement here. And then if you're unemployed, you'll put it here. And then it states down here your current individual annual income. This is your average gross income right now. So even though you submit taxes that indicate a certain amount on your income taxes for last year, they're not asking about that. They're asking what are you currently making as your gross income as of right now. So you want to put what it is yearly. So you want to estimate it. So if you're earning $5,000 a month as gross income, you take 5,000 times 12 months and you put down here 60,000. And then if you're combining your income with other individuals, you could put down their names here. We recommend that if you are filing as a sponsor, that you do qualify by yourself, that you're not using your spouse's income or you're not using anyone else's income, because it will require additional evidences that I really doubt the government is going to list on their checklist of what's required. I really don't think they list it. So in that situation, if that sponsor's income is insufficient or your income is insufficient by yourself, I definitely recommend you seek out an attorney to see how to overcome that. So we're going to move, let's say for example you're doing this by yourself, so you can skip all of this for additional individuals. And then down here where it says my current annual income, this should be the same number as whatever you put down here, my current individual income is. So the number should be very similar. Next, you want to just read this to see if it applies to you. Most likely not. Down in 23, it asks you, have you filed your taxes for the most recent tax years? So if you haven't filed your taxes, you need to do so. The government is not going to let you be a sponsor for someone if you don't file your taxes. So get with an accountant to file your taxes if you owe taxes or if you didn't file your taxes. In certain situations, you don't have to file taxes, but you'll still need documentation to show that you were not required to file for taxes. So like if you are receiving retirement income, social security income, or disability income, in those situations you may not be required to file your taxes, but you will need special documents. So make sure that you read over the I-864 form instructions. So for most people, they would click on yes here, that they filed their taxes. And here's optional. Do you want to provide tax transcripts for the last 3 years? I usually recommend that people do this just to be very transparent with the government. So I go ahead and put on yes, but if you don't want to, you don't have to select this option. If you do, you do have to provide your tax transcripts for the last 3 years. So down here is asking for your tax transcript. So if you notice here, right now is November 28, 2022. So the most recent one would be 2021, right? And the one before that would be 2020. And the one after that would be 2019. Next is total income. This is not the same as gross income. So this amount is not the same as the amount you listed here under current income. Is not the same as the amount you listed here as your current individual income. This amount is the adjusted gross income. So if you take a look at your individual tax return or tax transcript, you will notice the first line usually lists your gross income. This is the amount that you made before any taxes are taken out. After taxes are taken out, it's called your adjusted gross income or your net income. This is the amount that they want here. So in 2021, let's say you made $60,000, but after taxes were taken out, you earned $45,000. So this will be your total income for that particular year. So remember, the government is looking at your most recent tax year. So if you are a family of 2 and your net income or adjusted gross income was over this amount, most likely you'll qualify to sponsor that foreign national. However, let's say, for example, you have a family size of 5. This means that you are married, you have 2 children, that makes 4 people. Then you add in the foreign national. So your family size is considered a family size of 5. This is telling you that your net income should be over $40,587. If it's only $40,000, that means that you don't qualify because your family or household size is too much and you don't make enough. In that situation, you may have to either speak with an attorney to see how you can use your assets to help prove that you can financially support the person, or you could get a joint sponsor. Next, again, like we mentioned above, if you were not required to pay taxes or to file for your taxes because you are retired, you have disability, or you're on Social Security income, you could select this box here where it says you were not required to pay 1 or 2 more years because of that reason. Now, if your income qualifies, let's say, for example, all of your number is above this figure here, you don't have to fill in all of this. So you don't have to fill in Part 7. You don't have to fill in Part 7 all the way up to Part 7 at all. So just skip that part if you qualify. I don't recommend people fill in this part by themselves. If you feel like there is a need to fill in this area, speak with an attorney because most likely you'll make a mistake in evaluating what to put down in these boxes. Next, in Part 8, it tells you the sponsor's contract. It tells you what you are responsible for when you fill out an affidavit of support. Next, you want to go ahead and click on here. You can read and understand English, and you understand what's written on this affidavit. So remember, read these things carefully and make sure you understand. If anyone helped you fill this out, such as an attorney, that person will click this box here and they will enter in their name here. If you're using a person that claims to be a paralegal or a tax professional or an immigration professional and they don't fill in this box, this is a red flag. That means that they're afraid immigration is going to see this and notice that they're not qualified to help you. So if you're hiring anyone to help you with this affidavit of support, they should fill out this form where it says they're the preparer of this form. Next, the person, the U.S. citizen or green card holder, they should enter in their phone number here, their mobile phone number if they have any, and their email address. Try not to leave anything blank. Next, you see here, is going to ask for the sponsor's signature. So the same person, let's see here, let me scroll up, the same person that put their name here, and also the same person that filled out where it says sponsor here in Part 4 is the same person that's going to have to sign this document here. So once you sign it, go back to it. Once you sign it in preferably black ink, you're going to date it. Make sure to date it in this format. After that, if the joint sponsor had an interpreter, so let's say, for example, the U.S. citizen or green card holder, they couldn't speak English and they needed someone to translate the documents for them, the interpreter's information should be here. And this is very important. Don't skip the interpreter's information because later on, if the government finds out that the foreign national doesn't speak English at this time, they're going to ask who interpreted and why wasn't this filled out properly. And you really don't want your green card taken away for something small and insignificant as the interpreter certification. So when you fill this out, enter in the interpreter's information. It's very similar to what the sponsor has to fill out. Here it asks you for the language that interpreter is fluent in. So English and whatever language that is. So it could be Spanish, Vietnamese, Yoruba, whatever language that is. Next, you want to go ahead and make sure that the interpreter signs the documents and enters the date in this format. Next, if there is a preparer, if your attorney is filling this out for you, you want to go ahead and have them fill this out. If you have an attorney and they do not fill this out, I have a feeling that they may not be an accredited or licensed attorney. They may just be a paralegal doing this on the side. And if you watched our prior videos, if you have an issue with your case and you don't have an attorney that's filling out this form or that's representing you before immigration, A third party is not going to be able to talk to the government on your behalf when there's problems. So make sure that whoever's helping you properly fills out this form carefully. That way the government can contact them if they have any questions. This right here should automatically populate. I believe it's going to be the foreign national's last name, first name, and middle name. So it'll automatically populate. So once you fill out the form, the government will automatically fill this out for you. So this is how you fill out the I-864 form. Hopefully this information makes sense and makes the process easier for you. But remember, this video is not intended to give you legal advice. We always recommend that you read over the form instructions and the immigration code to make sure that you're up to date with all of the immigration regulations and codes. Again, thank you for watching Winning Law. I'm attorney David Nguyen, and we hope that we have made immigration easier to understand.
At David Nguyen's Law Office, we are here to help you. We bring families together through immigration. And on the other hand, we help you find solutions. All your legal needs in the hands of people who care, who are there for you. We'll take care of your loved ones at the law office of David Nguyen.